Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Unlocking Opportunities in Manitoba's Green Economy. I'm Alexander Lavoie, and I'm joined today by my colleagues, Amma, Funmi, Eric, and Deanna might be on there. Before we begin, we acknowledge that our Brandon office is located on Treaty 2 lands, the traditional homeland of the Dakota, Anishinaabe, Cree, Dene, and Métis people. We work extensively throughout Manitoba in the lands of the Treaties 1 through 4 and the southern portion of Treaty 5. RMED respects the treaties made on these lands where we will work together. We commit to reconciliation along the path to economic prosperity. A few housekeeping items. Please note that the webinar is being recorded. If you experience any technical difficulties, please send a message in the chat and someone will assist you promptly. If you get disconnected, please use your initial link to log back in. And we also encourage to use the chat feature for any questions that you might have for our panelists. We'll address these during our Q&A session, or if it has some pertinence, we might interrupt the programming to answer any questions you might have. So before we dive in, please just take a moment to answer the following Zoom poll questions that my colleague Amma will be putting up shortly, and at what level we understand these concepts. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm pleased to introduce you to our distinguished panel of experts. Each brings a wealth of experience and unique insights to our discussion today. I'd like to introduce you to Krista Roost, Program Director. Krista is a seasoned environmental leader and change advocate with nearly 2 decades of experience in progressively senior leadership positions. With a solid foundation in natural resource and environmental management, she has navigated her career with a steadfast commitment to fostering sustainable practices and driving meaningful change towards a greener future. Her innovative project management approach and impactful policy development have significantly contributed to environmental advocacy and the adoption of sustainable community practices. Welcome, Krista. Yeah. I'd also like to welcome Sarah Duval, Program Manager. And Sarah is a solution-focused professional dedicated to enhancing resources and programs within communities. She brings over 24 years of experience in driving social purpose and environmental initiatives, excelling in program management, stakeholder engagement, and strategic planning. Her understanding of both the nonprofit and corporate sectors positions her as a knowledgeable and reliable resource in creating meaningful change. Her track record includes successfully launching and leading impactful programs, and most recently with the United Way Winnipeg Social Purpose Institute. Welcome to both of you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alexander. And we'll get started, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces, and that was a great poll to kind of get us started in understanding what the understanding and makeup of the group is here today, so appreciate that. So today's agenda is going to focus on 3 key points. First, we'll explore Manitoba's green advantage, highlighting the province's unique assets that exist already, but also that growth potential. Next, we'll discuss the road to a green economy, where we'll examine why this transition is vital and what's happening internationally, nationally, and provincially to drive this change and opportunity. And finally, we're excited to share with you an SME support program called the MGA cohort. So as I dive right in here, some of you know these the answers to these questions, some of you may not. So we'll make sure it's a level playing field. So what is Manitoba's green advantage? We're not talking about the program here, we're talking about Manitoba's advantages. You may have heard over the past year that we have been communicating that Manitoba has something special to offer the world. We have what the world wants. More than 98% of our energy comes from clean renewable sources like hydro and wind, making our grid one of the cleanest, not just in Canada, but in the world. We're also home to 30 of the 34 critical minerals needed to advance the green economy. So minerals like lithium and nickel are essential for batteries, electric vehicles, and overall the energy transition. Important not to forget our strong history in agriculture, manufacturing, and skilled trades, All of those are advantages that we have in our pocket. So why does the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce have this program? At the Chambers, we see the Manitoba Green Advantage program as a game changer. It's an opportunity to grow our economy by embracing green initiatives and strengthening our competitive edge. This program shows us Manitoba's story using data to showcase our strengths in the green economy, inspiring businesses and communities, attracting the strategic investments we need to drive sustainable growth. So the program itself is focusing on two key phases. The first phase that has taken a good portion of the time that Sarah and I have been with the Chambers is the roadmap. This is our guide to grow Manitoba's green economy. It lays out the strategies and the actions. So we want to make sure that within that roadmap, we build on our strengths in renewable energy and critical minerals. We drive innovation and job creation in green industries, and we ensure the transition to the green economy benefits all Manitobans. We really want an inclusive and resilient future. The second phase, which is the cohort, Sarah will cover in a little bit more detail in the second half of this presentation. But the MGA roadmap really is about moving from opportunity to action. We like to complain about what we're not maybe so good at, or the weather, or different things. We want to promote what we are good at, what our advantages are, and attract those. So Manitoba doesn't just participate in the green economy, but it takes a leadership role. We go. The other piece that I wanted to talk about, and I alluded to at the beginning, was, what's the importance from the global context, the national context, and the Manitoba context. And to be fair, both myself and Sarah were editing notes this morning because there's a lot going on in the world right now, as I'm sure all of you know. But from the global context, countries are working together, with the exception of one, under the Paris Agreement, to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's an effort to protect people, ecosystems, economies. We don't want the fires that are happening in California to be commonplace. A green economy reduces our emissions, promotes clean energy, and safeguards our resources. With international sustainability standards, and you may or may not be aware that Canada has developed some which are not a requirement fully yet, but they're out there. Businesses and governments can collaborate more effectively to grow trade in a way that supports the planet. So it doesn't mean our economies need to stop. It's how can we make them more resilient and more beneficial from not just the environmental, the economic, but also the social. Canada's national strategy is to reach net zero by 2050, balancing our emissions with removals or offsets. This is both a challenge and an opportunity. Clean technology and renewable energy will drive job creation, economic growth, and environmental stewardship. So those resources that I talked about, those advantages that we have, those become a real important player. We do know, with the US pulling out of the Paris Agreement, Canada now has a chance to step up as the leader in North America. Often, communications that you might see talk about North America, but really just talk about Canada, or don't talk about Canada, they talk about the US. We need to change that narrative and make Canada stand out as a leader in the green economy. So while the US climate action slows at federal levels, maybe it won't on state levels, there is that momentum to accelerate globally. So key opportunities for Manitoba and Canada, obviously with the discussions on tariffs as well, we have an opportunity here, not only just in the green economy, but also with what is happening to strengthen our domestic trade. There is a significant opportunity there. We can diversify beyond the US. We have a lot of partners. We have the Port of Churchill. There's a lot of opportunities that could be unlocked. Leveraging Manitoba's strengths is key to that success, and then aligning with global climate policies. So we have an opportunity to gain a competitive edge in international markets if we understand the standards that are required to export to them. So Manitoba's role in the green economy, we have a strong foundation already, but we need to invest in clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and innovation. We can cut emissions, create jobs, and protect the environment. The question might be, well, why does this all matter? And the green economy is not just about the environment. It's about building a stronger, more sustainable future for everyone. So if we want more jobs in high growth industries, if we want healthier communities, and we want a stronger, more resilient economy that adapts to a changing climate and also to other challenges and can react to these new opportunities, it's important and it matters. In speaking about some of the pieces that came out of our research on the current state of Manitoba, it is quite clear that Manitoba is uniquely positioned. We have all the ingredients to excel in a green economy, but to fully capitalize on our advantages, we really need to move fast. If you were at our Green Forum back in October, we had Laurel Broughton join us from Invest in Canada, and she said that quite eloquently. So this means we need to invest in renewables, drive innovation, and forge strategic partnerships before other regions pull ahead in the energy transition. 98% of our grid is green, and we've had that advantage for a long time, but there's other jurisdictions who are coming up and keeping pace with us in that regard. So we do have strengths and resources. We're equipped to compete globally. We've got those critical minerals. We've got that green grid. And we also have expertise in nuclear energy, which is sometimes forgotten. And this is a growing part of the clean energy mix. So the site at Pinawa does have a history since 1970 in terms of research in nuclear energy. The need for investments. The time is now to invest if we want to stay competitive. We need to catch this train before it leaves the station. So we do really need to push forward and expand renewable energy infrastructure, accelerate energy efficiency initiatives, because we can't just achieve the energy needs of our future just by generating. We also have to improve efficiencies to meet the timelines. And we also need to attract capital for clean tech and innovation. We have a prime opportunity with the focus being shifted from the US for Canada to take that role. Other regions are moving, as I mentioned, and we don't want to miss out. We do also want to recognize that innovation through collaboration is a key part of this equation. Innovation doesn't happen in isolation. I might have great ideas, but to come to a solution, I need other brains around me to figure out how things will work. So we will thrive through strategic partnerships. So between government, industry, academia, there's a lot of exciting things already happening, but a lot more that can. By working together, we can develop cutting-edge clean technologies, transform our energy landscape, and build a sustainable economy. But again, to this point on action, we can't afford to wait. Provinces and countries around the world are already advancing, and if we don't act quickly, Manitoba runs the risk of falling behind. So that brings us to the roadmap. The roadmap is to come with the hope that this will be released to everyone within this first quarter of 2025. And the objective of that roadmap is to tie directly to our previous discussions. The Manitoba Chamber of Commerce, alongside the broader business community, wants a clear, actionable plan to leverage our resources, focus our efforts, attract investment, drive innovation, and forge strategic partnerships. So we are aiming to set the map in front of us to achieve that progress for Manitoba in the green economy. I will switch it over to Sarah for the second half of the presentation, unless there's any questions that Alexander can let me know about.
None so far, Krista. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thanks so much, Krista. I can tell you're recovering from a cold, so it's good that we split this in half to give you a bit of a break. Thanks so much for those of you joining us online. Really appreciate your time. We know there's a lot of activities that might be pulling your attention away, but I know Krista and I are really not only excited about the project, but this is something that should have happened. This planning should have happened years ago in order to prepare Manitoba. We do, as Krista mentioned, already feel behind. And I think with the majority of the makeup of our businesses in Manitoba being SMEs, so those small, medium-sized enterprises. The programming and the connection to the green economy I'm going to make in the next couple slides are absolutely critical. So thanks for being here. I know, we need to be supporting our SME transition in a green economy. I want to speak to, since you're representing the rural communities in particular, some of the benefits and some of the challenges. So we know that there are a lot of benefits to transition. We've seen these transitions in other countries, but also in other areas in Canada. So renewable energy projects, you heard Krista talk about that. Those are community-owned solar and wind farms. They're great opportunities to generate not only income, but energy independence, especially when you're talking about really remote or northern communities that still rely on diesel. Lot of exploration, if you're familiar with the agriculture sector and bioenergy and using agriculture waste to create new revenue streams for farmers, which is a really interesting area. The sustainable agriculture and agri-food innovation movement. We've seen some really incredible regenerative farming techniques that's not only improving soil health, but providing that long-term longevity for our rural farmers in their communities and providing that resilience for long-term productivity. Local food processing and value-added products. So things like small-scale food processing businesses like organic flour mills, artisanal cheese. Those are great opportunities to create jobs, but also keep the food chains local. Vertical farming, indoor greenhouses, all really great. Other great examples. Green manufacturing and the circular economy. There's a great company out in Brandon. Oh, Krista, go back. Yep, whoop. It's okay. There's a great company out in Brandon called Greenstone Building Products. And what they build are what they call ice panels. They're essentially used as walls and housing. And they're airtight, non-toxic, super sustainable. They're shipping to a lot of northern communities as well as overseas as a great alternative to building kind of traditional walls in housing developments. So some really great things happening in the green manufacturing. Energy efficiency, green buildings. I think if you're familiar with Efficiency Manitoba and the great programs they have to offer, there's a really great, probably one of the easiest ways for businesses to not only support emissions reduction, but also cost savings for them is to invest in more energy efficiency and green building opportunities. Really important that we aren't talking enough about, I think, is the remote and digital green jobs. So ensuring that this area of expertise will only continue to grow over the years, and ensuring that our rural communities have that broadband capabilities in order to do remote work in sustainability consulting, clean tech, and other sustainable focused industries is a really great growing opportunity for consulting and others for job opportunities. And of course, the challenges. I'm sure you look at this list and you could apply this to a digital technology transformation or other initiatives you're trying to launch in rural communities, very similar to the same ones you would see in a transition to green economy. Adapting to new technologies require investments in education and infrastructure and equitable access to resources. Investments in capital, you heard Krista talk about this, can be really tricky. I think there's a huge knowledge gap often for SMEs in terms of what's available, and which I'm sure RMED and others quite familiar with, understanding what the grant landscape, investment landscape looks like for rural communities and businesses in particular. And Krista talked about this, touched on that regulatory environment piece, and I'll talk a little bit about that here on the next slide. So we're ready. Thank you. When we think about the business case for transitioning to a green economy, there's lots of great reasons why we need to do this. So in addition to the global context, Krista was talking about earlier. I think cost savings needs to be first and foremost. These sustainability practices, reducing energy, reducing waste, becoming more efficient and lean will save money over time and yield greater returns in terms of long-term profitability, but also sustainability as a company. We've seen the market demands changing. Eco-conscious consumers still continue to rise despite our geopolitical climates we're operating in, and suppliers and partners want to align their sustainability or principles or values. So adopting sustainable practices into your SME will help meet those evolving preferences and strengthening loyalty and customer and market share. We keep talking about that competitive advantage. It's true. If you look at, we have some really great, incredible companies doing incredible things from a sustainability lens here in Manitoba, but we have a long way to go in terms of the overall network. So there's still an opportunity here to drive a competitive edge if you are an SME in terms of your sustainable practices and investments in clean energy and other things. Investor appeal. So this speaks to what's happening from a global perspective, the noise around environmental social governance, also known as ESG. Is it in? Is it out? Are we doing it? Is it corporate responsibility? Is it emissions reduction? Is it carbon reduction? It's a very confusing landscape, I would say, for companies. But what's not changing is what the conversations from an investor level. Fossil fuel is a finite resource. We will not have access to it at some point someday. So when you're looking at investors like BlackRock, one of the largest ones in the world, they want to invest their money in companies that they believe are going to be long-term and sustainable. And so companies need to be measuring their GHG emissions and starting to make those transitions now, not 10 years from now. And they're already, we're losing millions of dollars here in Manitoba, if not more, because we're not on the radar in terms of the great companies we currently have, but we're also going to lose out on the future investment opportunities if we don't start to help them to transition to more sustainable practices now. They'll be expected to report on that investors are looking for. So that urgency that Krista talks about definitely translate to our business community here in the province. You have, and if you don't know, insurance companies. So SMEs are going to start to need to report their GHG emissions reductions to their insurers. They're going to need to have science-based targets to satisfy insurance providers, or they're going to end up paying more for their insurance premiums. So the costs are coming. Most of these companies don't know about it. And I believe as part of that climate risk management, that's going to be starting in 2025. And that's probably going to be news to a lot of SMEs, that expectation is coming from some of their insurance companies. And then we talk about compliance and supply chain. Again, companies are increasingly requiring those vendors or suppliers in their chains to report back on things like their emissions or environmental social governance criteria. So again, these are ways that we need to start. We're in conversation with Supply Chain Manitoba. We work closely with the Manitoba Environmental Industries Association. We're doing everything we can as a network to say, hey, what do our SMEs, what are they not aware of? What is coming? How can we prepare them best to make sure that they're ready? Which brings us to the next slide. So I want to speak directly to a program that Krista and I were required to launch as part of this project. And so it's changed from what the original vision was for this program. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what it was and why it's changed. Originally, in order to help SMEs transition, we thought, wouldn't it be great to just have a grant program? We'll be able to give grants, about $10,000 to 60 companies. We'll get them started on their journey, whether that's setting a baseline of GHG emissions, or maybe it's an investment in their innovation. And through our research and talking to, some of those key partners that we've mentioned, we realized what's really missing here is there's lots of tools for companies to measure and set their baseline. There are lots of great workshops, one-day workshops, webinars from the SME Climate Hub or Climate Action Canada or others to help you understand what sustainability is and the impact on business. What there's not is a full wraparound supported program to say, hey, this is why you need to get started. This is how you get started. Here's an action plan. And here's where we can connect you with the funding, whether that's a financial institution or others, to get you started. And so we redesigned the program to be a more fully wraparound supported program for businesses. We are starting with a first cohort of 20 companies. We chose the cohort for a reason. Instead of just doing it one-on-one with each company, we've partnered with Green Economy Canada to support this 20 company cohort. Number one, it allows for clear action. So once they've set their baseline, we're going to help them set an action plan, set their goals. It can be difficult for a business to understand, how do you prioritize what you should do next? Should you, I don't want to say replace your windows because that's an easy fix, but should you transition your fleet from, diesel to electric? Should you invest in new manufacturing equipment? These are critical questions that companies have when they're trying to transition their business or become more competitive. Maybe it's investing in new packaging that's going to open up opportunities for you to be able to sell in overseas markets that require certain standards. So we're going to help them figure that out. We're going to give them the tools. So when we talk about environmental social governance, we talk about reporting, it can be difficult to understand how you track and measure those. So they're going to have access to a tool called Carbon Hound that's going to help them be able to measure and report on their emissions. And it's recognized by and used by other financial institutions like ACU and RBC. So it's reputable. So they're going to be able to not only measure, but continue to measure for many years to come if they choose to stay with the Carbon Hound program. And then, of course, networking, it gives you that level of accountability as well, right? It's easy to sign up for a program in these difficult environments for business where there are many other challenges and being pulled in different directions. We know it can be difficult to stay on track. And so the cohort model allows you to not just start, but to continue and that accountability to complete your sustainability journey with us and keep that momentum going. Really, I think inspiring each other in this business community that we have in Manitoba is probably one of our greatest assets. And so before I'll take questions, we'll just move on to the next slide. So we're starting with 20 companies looking for, less than 500 employees, more than 10 Manitoba based. And this is what the cohort program looks like just from a timeline perspective. So they'll start, we kick off in April. We are recruiting by tapping the shoulders of companies we know are ready. So they're ready to commit to setting those GHG baselines. They're often ones that haven't already gotten started or already done anything in terms of building that resiliency or measuring emissions. They'll do that data collection and GHG assessment for the first kind of 4 months. If they happen to finish sooner, they can move sooner. And then we'll move on to the completion of energy audits. If that's something they're interested in, we'll certainly be partnering them with Efficiency Manitoba to be able to make those happen. Step 3 is that action plan. So when I talk about the reason why we transition this program to look very different, this is often where companies get stuck. This is the reason, this is the barrier, this is the pain point that we're trying to address by getting our businesses through this stage, is setting those action plans. And again, that reporting piece is absolutely critical for other investors, for the insurers, or any other regulatory compliance that will be coming to help build that resilience for our SME community. So I will pause there for questions, or Krista, if there's anything I forgot to mention specifically related to the SME piece.
No, you did a wonderful job there, Sarah.
Thanks.
That's fantastic, and thank you so much for presenting the information. We'll give a couple minutes to our guests if there's any questions. How could we, are we gonna share this PDF of the presentation, or is there, that's the website down there for more info?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to share the PDF of the presentation. Our website does have a bit of the history of where we've gotten to now. When we do release our roadmap, that will be on the website as well. And information about the cohorts, you can connect with us more directly, as it is the 20 that Sarah mentioned.
Okay, excellent. We do have a question here. How will you be reaching out to SMEs, and what timeline can we expect?
Sarah, did you want to take that?
Yeah, great question. So we've been working with some of those partners I mentioned, like MEIA, Efficiency Manitoba, Food and Beverage Association, to tap their shoulders to get some referrals of companies that they work with that they know would not only be interested, but ready for this program. So if you have anyone that you think would be ready and interested, feel free to connect with us. We're not broadly announcing the program publicly because we only have room for the 20. This is what we're kind of considering a bit of a pilot program. And I think most importantly, we do have funders that we have to report to in terms of our project outcomes. And so we are looking for organizations that will have the potential for large kind of GHG reductions. So companies in manufacturing, agriculture, transportation, although they'll probably be the most distracted by what's happening with the tariffs right now. But yeah, we're open to referrals. We have an information session that we're hosting with Green Economy Canada on February 20th. So we're inviting any interested companies to attend the info session to learn more, to have an understanding of what the time commitment is, as well as the cost. I didn't mention, but one of the barriers to transitioning is cost, and there's very little cost, almost to none, for these companies to participate. That's what we are covering. They will have a small Green Economy Canada membership fee to pay, but Green Economy Canada is generously offered to pay for 50% of that membership. So you're looking at a cost to participate of roughly $1,000. We've been told by a former KPMG consultant that for a company to pay to go through this process would cost like upwards of over $100,000 to do what we're doing for very minimal. So we've removed that barrier, but we do need companies that are ready to put in the work and ensure that they're ready to act now.
Fantastic. Are there any other questions? If not, I think this might be a world record, because usually we put aside an hour, but that's fantastic. If there are, Eric, sorry.
Great, Alexander. I do have one question, Sarah, where you alluded to a change in insurance requirements. Does this mean that some companies will see an increase in insurance rates if they are unable to meet certain GHG emission marks?
Yeah, I know, Krista, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because insurance companies are publicly reporting and they have commitments they have to reduce their scope 3 emissions. So the scope 3 emissions are generally emissions that you have a little less control on, but who you choose to provide insurance to, you can control that a little bit more by making sure that that insurer is paying attention to their emissions and thereby reducing them. So just like a bank may choose to support businesses that have more of a green tinge to them because it helps them with their scope 3 emissions, which they have to report on, that ripple effect will be seen. So not just from the insurance perspective, but also from the loan perspective. So what Sarah had alluded to is the system that we're using is something that financial institutions already approve of, so that access to a green financing or a green loan thereby increases for a business that's looking to advance further. The same will be the case for insuring. It may just be that insurance company chooses not to insure you, or potentially a premium increase. We know that 2050 we kind of have to get there. There's international commitments, so it's kind of short-sighted if we look and say like, oh, SMEs don't have to do anything, Canada will figure this out or the globe will figure this out. There will be trickle down. Those are two of the areas that we see kind of coming up a little bit more and a little bit more pronounced. And I think with the level of cost with the California fires, that's going to impact moving forward some of those insurance pieces too.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So if anybody has follow-up questions, the contact information for Krista and Sarah are on the screen there. If you do not have their contact, feel free to reach out to RMED Events or one of our EDAs or myself. We'd happily pass along those questions. There was just, while I do the wrap up here, there's just a question to the resource page on your website. So if you have a moment just to put the web link in there for everybody's information, that would be great.
I'll ask Sarah if you could do that, then I don't mess up the screens like I did earlier, touching something. Yeah, and again, to anyone on the call, if you know of a business, a small and medium-sized business that might be interested in this process, please do reach out to us and let us know. Yeah, the shoulder tap piece we're doing in this regard because we feel that if we open it up quite broadly, it's going to be very tough to get those 20 companies sifted through what could potentially be hundreds. And like Sarah mentioned, we hope that this is a pilot with more cohorts to come because we recognize, SMEs make up 90% of Manitoba businesses, and this is an important step in moving towards our 2050 targets.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Just a couple plugs for RMED webinars coming up. February 13th, we have Work in Manitoba Job Portal, Key Benefits and Functionalities with Yes Winnipeg. And joining Alex Kirbyson with Business Council of Manitoba, Director Jesse Steckley speaking on empowering Indigenous futures, education, employment, and economic reconciliation. On March 13th, we have a lot of webinars this month. That's great. March 13th is Insight from the Manitoba Water Services Board, summary of MWSB project activities, new funding formulas starting April 1st, 2024. So keep an eye out for that. And before we leave, we do ask that you fill out the following Zoom questions just to help us with feedback and future programming. Thank you so much.